Section 9 of My First Summer in the Sierra. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. My First Summer in the Sierra by John Muir. Read by Adrian Pretzelis. July 24. Clouds at noon, occupying half the sky, gave half an hour of heavy rain to wash one of the cleanest landscapes in the world. How well it is washed! The sea is hardly less dusty than the ice-burnished pavements and ridges, domes and canyons and summit peaks plashed with snow like waves with foam. How fresh the woods are, and calm, after the last films of clouds have been wiped from the sky. A few minutes ago every tree was excited, bowing to the roaring storm, waving, swirling, tossing their branches in glorious enthusiasm like worship. But though to the outer ear these trees are now silent, their songs never cease. Every hidden cell is throbbing with music and life, every fibre thrilling like harp-strings, while incense is ever flowing from the balsam bells and leaves. No wonder the hills and groves were God's first temples, and the more they are cut down and hewn into cathedrals and churches, the farther off and dimmer seems the Lord himself. The same may be said of stone temples. Yonder, to the eastward of our camp grove, stands one of nature's cathedrals, hewn from the living rock, almost conventional in form, about 2,000 feet high, nobly adorned with spires and pinnacles, thrilling under floods of sunshine, as if alive like a grove temple, and well named Cathedral Peak. Even Shepherd Billy turns at times to this wonderful mountain building, though apparently deaf to all stone sermons. Snow that refused to melt in fire would hardly be more wonderful than unchanging dullness in the rays of God's beauty. I have been trying to get him to walk to the brink of Yosemite for a view, offering to watch the sheep for a day, while he should enjoy what tourists come from all over the world to see. But though within a mile of the famous valley, he will not go to it, even out of mere curiosity. "What," said he, "is Yosemite but a canyon, a lot of rocks, a hole in the ground, a place dangerous about falling into, a damn good place to keep away from." "But think of the waterfalls, Billy. Just think of that big stream we crossed the other day, falling half a mile through the air. Think of that, and the sound it makes. You can hear it now like the roar of the sea." Thus I pressed Yosemite upon him like a missionary offering the gospel, but he would have none of it. "I should be afraid to look over so high a wall," he said. "It would make my head swim. There is nothing worth seeing anyhow, only rocks, and I see plenty of them here. Tourists that spend their money to see rocks and falls are fools, that's all. You can't humbug me. I've been in this country too long for that." Such souls, I suppose, are asleep, or smothered and befogged beneath mean pleasures and cares. July 25. Another cloudland. Some clouds have an overripe, decaying look, watery and bedraggled, and drawn out into wind-torn shreds and patches, giving the sky a littered appearance. Not so these Sierra summer midday clouds. All are beautiful, with smooth, definite outlines and curves like those of glacier-polished domes. They begin to grow about 11 o'clock, and seem so wonderfully near and clear from this high camp, one is tempted to try to climb them, and trace the streams that pour like cataracts from their shadowy fountains. The rain to which they give birth is often very heavy, a sort of waterfall as imposing as if pouring from rock mountains. Never in all my travels have I found anything more truly novel and interesting than these midday mountains of the sky, their fine tones of colour, majestic visible growth, and ever-changing scenery and general effects, though mostly as well let alone as far as description goes. I oftentimes think of Shelley's cloud poem, "I sift the snow on the mountains below." July 26. Rambled to the summit of Mount Hoffman, 11,000 feet high, the highest point in life's journey my feet have yet touched. And what glorious landscapes are about me! New plants, new animals, new crystals, and multitudes of new mountains far higher than Hoffman, towering in glorious array along the axis of the range, serene, majestic, snow-laden, sun-drenched, vast domes and ridges shining below them, forests, lakes and meadows in the hollows, the pure, blue, bellflower sky brooding them all. A glory day of admission into a new realm of wonders, as if nature had wooingly whispered, "Come higher." What questions I asked, and how little I know of all the vast show, and how eagerly, tremulously hopeful of some day knowing more, learning the meaning of these divine symbols crowded together on this wondrous page. Mount Hoffman is the highest part of a ridge or spur about 14 miles from the axis of the main range, perhaps a remnant brought into relief and isolated by unequal denudation. The southern slopes shed their waters into Yosemite Valley by Tenaya and Dome Creeks, the northern in part into the Tuolumne River, but mostly into the Merced by Yosemite Creek. The rock is mostly granite, with some small piles and crests rising here and there in picturesque pillared and castellated remnants of red metamorphic slates. Both the granite and slates are divided by joints, making them separable into blocks like the stones of artificial masonry, suggesting the scripture, "He hath builded the mountains." Great banks of snow and ice are piled into hollows on the cool precipitous north side, forming the highest perennial sources of Yosemite Creek. The southern slopes are much more gradual and accessible. Narrow, slot-like gorges extend across the summit at right angles, which look like lanes, formed evidently by the erosion of less resisting beds. They are usually called Devil's Slides, though they lie farther above the region usually haunted by the devil, for though we read that he once climbed an exceeding high mountain, he cannot be much of a mountaineer, for his tracks are seldom seen above the timberline. The broad grey summit is barren and desolate looking in general views, wasted by ages of gnawing storms, but looking at the surface in detail, one finds it covered by thousands and millions of charming plants, with leaves and flowers so small they form no mass of colour visible at a distance of a few hundred yards. Beds of azure daisies smile confidingly in moist hollows, and along the banks of small rills, with several species of eriogonum, silky-leaved ivessia, penstemon, orthocarpus, and patches of Primulus afruticosa, a beautiful shrubby species. Here also I find bryanthus, a charming heathwort covered with purple flowers and dark green foliage like heather, and 3 trees new to me, a hemlock and 2 pines. The hemlock, Tsuga mertensiana, is the most beautiful conifer I have ever seen. The branches and also the main axis droop in a singularly graceful way, and the dense foliage covers the delicate, sensitive, swaying branchlets all around. It is now in full bloom, and the flowers, together with thousands of last season's cones still clinging to the drooping sprays, display wonderful wealth of